You, the voters. And when the candidates sit across from us, nothing's off the table. What's your plan to make New York City feel like a safer city?
S.E. Cup, that's your perception. Of course, there's a lot of crime.
So what's happening right now? Let's dive in. Welcome to Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. It's Friday, y'all. It's October 24th. We are just 11 days away from this all-important New York City election. I can't believe it's like around the corner. Later in today's show, we're going to talk about where this race stands after that last debate. But first, as always, let's get to some news. And joining me again is Morgan McKay, political reporter for Fox 5 New York. Morgan, welcome back to the show.
I'm glad to be here. And you said 11 days, but I think that's counting today. And I don't know if I want to count today anymore, Ezzy.
Let's make it 10.
Yeah.
Let's make it 10.
We're almost there. We are almost there. Yeah.
The finish line is in sight. But as you know, in politics, 10 or 11 days could be a lifetime. A lot could change between now and then. I'm just saying. But let's talk about the latest. You sat down with Zohran Mamdani today. It was one of his first interviews since the debate this week. How was that conversation?
Yeah, and his campaign tells me that it's likely going to be his last big interview before the election. And it was good. We really just honed in on just policy. We talked about education. We talked about his free bus plan and how he's going to ensure it's not just a rolling homeless shelter. He didn't really answer this part too much. He kind of went back to what he said before, which is that when they had their pilot program for free buses, that they didn't have a problem with homelessness. But we are, if he's elected and this plan is rolled out, that's really going to be something that we're all going to be looking at very closely. Like, how do you ensure that people can get kicked off if they're taking advantage of the situation? Now, we also talked about his plan for housing, and we also talked about his choice for NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch, who he announced this week that if elected, he would choose her as police commissioner. And we asked him, their ideologies are very separate. She wants to get rid of bail reform, for example. He wants to keep it. She wants to get rid of, or she wants to keep the strategic response group, which helps deal with protests, an NYPD SRG group, it's called. And Mamdani wants to get rid of it. And I asked him if he's going to be compromising, if he's going to have somebody like that leading the helm. And he said, no, he is looking for somebody to go ahead and push forward his platforms. But he didn't quite say if he's had a conversation with her since, but he did make it clear that this is something that he's heard that she is supportive of, that she really wants to stay on as police commissioner.
Well, what a great question you asked him. And, we'll have to see if that's true, that she wants to remain on once he goes ahead and pushes for some of those policies that are antithetical to a lot of what, we know that NYPD wants to do and thinks they should be doing. Did he talk about the debate at all, in particular, any of those moments that, where he was pressed on specifics for those ballot issues or anything else that he didn't really do that strongly? Did that come up at all?
Yes. And really quickly, just on that point there, what we have been hearing from sources close to Jessica Tisch's administration and from people close to Mamdani's campaign is that she has made it clear that she really does want to stay in this position. Becoming police commissioner was a big dream for her. However, their ideologies are very separate. So we're going to have to see if she does end up staying just with all the pressure coming around if he's elected. But we did talk about the debate a little bit in terms of those three housing proposals, the ballot propositions 2, 3, and 4 that are going to be on the back of the ballot this year, and whether or not he supports them. During the debate, he said he's still talking to stakeholders. He's been saying that for months now. Right. And he got a little pressure from people saying, go ahead, just pick one. And we asked him, are you just not wanting to share with New Yorkers where you stand because you don't want to lose votes? And he said, no, he's genuinely trying to still decide where he stands. And he says he thinks he'll have an answer before the election. So we'll have to see.
Well, let's hope so. Did he talk about how he's spending the next 11 days or 10 days? You mentioned yours might just be the last interview, and kudos on that. But did he talk about any plans for how he plans to, get more voters over the next 10 or 11 days?
So we really focused on policy, but we did ask him about a rally that's going to be held this Sunday. It's a Get Out the Vote rally, and he's going to have Congresswoman AOC, Senator Bernie Sanders there with him this weekend, and they're going to be pushing that Get Out the Vote. We also asked him, this was earlier this morning when we filmed the interview, we didn't quite know about this Hakeem Jeffries endorsement, the House Minority Leader endorsement just yet. We kind of assumed, but we did ask him if he was going to be appearing with him and at this rally. And Mamdani sort of chuckled and avoided the question, but we'll have to see if he does make it out. That endorsement was a little watery, you might say, just a little.
Yes, and I want to talk to you about that endorsement in a minute. But before the break, just early voting starts tomorrow in New York City. Will the candidates hit the campaign trail now even harder to get those early voters out to the polls?
We're seeing Curtis Lewa, the Republican nominee. He's had a packed schedule every single day. He has been having about 5 campaign events, at least bare minimum, every single day. He's been going out, meeting with voters, hitting the subways, hitting the streets, talking with people. Mamdani, he's also ramped up this week his campaign schedule as well. He's been having multiple events, multiple interviews. Cuomo this morning, Andrew Cuomo, he has been doing some more one-on-one interviews this week. Today, he didn't do any public events at first. This morning, he didn't have anything until about 2 o'clock. He announced that he was going to be holding a 4 p.m. presser. But otherwise, you would expect maybe a little bit more of a campaign leading into the first day of early voting.
Yeah, and the final week. Okay, Morgan, like I said, I have more questions for you, so stay right there. We'll be back with more Battleground NYC after the break. We're back with more Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. Joining me again is Morgan McKay, political reporter at Fox 5 New York. Morgan, you mentioned it. It's the thing we've been waiting for, or have we? I don't know. At this point, Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader's endorsement of Zohran Mamdani, coming 1 week before the election and months after Zohran Mamdani became the Democratic nominee. What'd you make of it?
Yeah, so he had said that he was going to weigh into the mayor's race before the start of early voting, which is tomorrow. And he has been dragging his feet. I do think that he didn't quite expect this government shutdown to be going on quite as long as it has been. So maybe he had sort of a different idea, but he came out in the New York Times first that he was going to be endorsing, and then they did send a statement later. And the statement was just sort of a half-hearted, it felt like, endorsement. He did say that they have a lot of differences, but he's pleased with Mamdani's pick for police commissioner, Jessica Tisch. But he said that he is going to be endorsing the entire slate, the Democratic slate. So not really saying I am wholeheartedly endorsing Mamdani or anything like that. A lot of the comments that I've seen have been maybe a little frustrated, saying not only did you anger Mamdani supporters by waiting so long, now you're angering voters who are maybe in the middle because you are just sort of giving this half-hearted endorsement.
Yes, we call this splitting the baby, okay? This is splitting the baby. You're trying to please all the people, you please none of the people. And I just don't even know if it matters at this point. I mean, not that Hakeem Jeffries isn't an important Democratic leader in the party. He is, and in New York City. But I just don't know this late in the game. As you said, it was sort of a mealy mouthed endorsement. I just don't know how much this is going to matter. But check, right? Check the box. It's done. I wanted to talk to you again about something else. There's controversy over this newly deleted AI video that the Cuomo campaign put out and then took down. It was called Criminals for Mamdani. What can you tell us about that?
So the Cuomo campaign released this ad, this AI generated ad that came off a little racist, and it came off a little interesting to say the least. And they also didn't follow disclosure forms that are typical for AI generated videos, but they quickly took it down. They said it was a mistake, that there was a draft that was posted by an intern or someone within their campaign, and there was an accident. However, this is actually somewhat common for the Cuomo campaign going back years, decades even. If you go back to 2018, for example, when Cynthia Nixon was challenging Cuomo during the gubernatorial primary, they came out, they sent out flyers to the Democratic Party, which was controlled at the time by Cuomo. They sent out flyers calling Cynthia Nixon anti-Semitic. They said later that that was an accident. Then even during this primary, there was an ad that went out that had Mamdani's face, his beard looking a lot thicker, looking a little bit more ethnic. And so saying that that was also just a mistake and taking that down. So this has been a pattern for the Cuomo campaign going back for years.
It's so dirty.
We are saying it's an accident.
It's so dirty because you get all the, you get it out there. People see it, and then you get to say, I didn't mean to. Pretend you didn't see it. Too late.
And a lot of
How
people
did
are
Curtis
playing that
Sliwa,
too. Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah. How did Curtis Sliwa react to Adams's endorsement of Cuomo?
Sliwa said that birds of a feather flock together, and said that in his opinion, he doesn't even want Adams supporters, which is maybe not the best messaging going into the week before of the election. But he said that if people are on the fence at this point in time and they're supporting Adams, then he says that they obviously support Adams, looking at his past corruption cases that he says were the reason why he had to step out of the race. And yesterday, Adams has been very consistent saying that Cuomo is a snake and a liar. He even went as far as to say that Cuomo has a history of pushing out Black candidates, referring to former Governor David Patterson. And then yesterday he went and called him a brother. So it took some people not too much of a surprise. It was definitely coming because many of Adams' close advisors, after Adams dropped his reelection bid, then went to go work for Cuomo.
Yeah, and I think to a voter who's been paying attention, this would be the natural. No one, I think, expected Eric Adams to go and endorse the Republican, Curtis Sliwa, or certainly not Zohran Mamdani. So I don't know that that was surprising, even despite all those jabs and barbs that had flown over the course of the campaign.
Yeah. And from sources that I've been hearing from, the Republican Party had no interest in endorsing Cuomo, but they did work potentially looking at maybe backing Adams if he were to keep his bid going. But that ended up, of course, he ended up dropping out. And now we're seeing sort of this stalled with the Republican Party. We're seeing some top Republican leaders going full force saying, go for Cuomo because he has the best shot, but others are saying absolutely not. We just spent the last 10 years blaming anything and everything that's going wrong in this city on Cuomo. So we're going to be endorsing Sliwa, and he really does have a chance. So we'll have to see if the polls are right. And a recent poll is actually showing that Curtis Sliwa might have a better chance at beating Mamdani than Cuomo. So we're going to have to see.
Woof. Okay. Well, Morgan McKay, thanks as always for your excellent reporting. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
And we'll be back with more Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote, after the break. we're back with more Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. Joining me now for the bigger picture is Evan Roth Smith. He's founding partner of Slingshot Strategies and lead pollster at Blueprint. Evan, the last time you were here, it was before both debates of the general election. And now with two down, two in the can, and only a few days to go, like just over a week, do you think that they changed the race at all?
No, they have not. They have not. I don't think we've seen any change in the race, certainly in the polling or in the discourse around the race. It doesn't really seem to have made much of a dent. Although, as Morgan alluded to earlier, Curtis Sliwa actually did pretty well in both debates, and maybe has gained a little bit. It's probably not the decisive factor in the election, but no, not much has changed. And you know what? It wouldn't be the first debate that failed to alter the trajectory of an election.
Yeah, usually they don't, although we can all point back in our minds to some in recent memory that definitely did. But what did you make of this last debate where Cuomo and Sliwa really took on Mamdani with some help from the moderators and the audience? And I thought landed some pretty effective punches. What did you think of those moments?
Yeah, they litigated the best possible case against Zoran that I think either of them want to litigate. It's also, as we've seen Donald Trump do very effectively when he's in a debate, it's nice to be on a stage where everyone's shooting at you, talking about you, trying to punch holes in you. A lot of us, when we're, those of us who cover or work in politics, when we're watching a debate, we're really watching like a boxing match, right? We're looking for who lands a punch, who's not. Voters don't necessarily watch a debate that way. Voters are trying to learn something about these candidates, trying to help. If they're a voter who hasn't made a decision yet, they're trying to make a decision. So seeing someone get ganged up on or seeing sometimes it makes a candidate look small when they're, just a couple, one of many shooting at another.
Sure.
And I think we may have seen a little bit of that. But again, nothing really happened at the debates that's going to change much.
Well, let me just ask you if, we know that a lot of voters really ignore much of the election season until the debates. Like that's almost this signal to tune in for a lot of folks. That happens in presidentials, it happens in local races. So if you hadn't really been paying attention, and sort of the counter to what you just said, you're watching these two guys really come at the front runner Mamdani and make the case that he's just not ready. Could you have been persuaded in that moment?
Maybe. I mean, sure, yes. It helps that Zoran had just prior to this named, indicated his desire to name Jessica Tisch as his police commissioner, which makes it a lot harder to say you're not going to surround yourself with talented people. Also, this isn't exactly a race that's flown under the radar, That's true. If you can find me some people who haven't heard anything about this race, and you should probably have them on, bring them out of the Hermitage and see what they think of the election.
Study them in Vienna. Yeah.
I think a lot of voters sort of knew the score going into these debates, and again, Cuomo was much more effective in the second debate than he was in the first.
I thought so too.
And clearly someone, his donors sat him down, or someone sat him down and said,
this is it.
Bring the heat, right? Like this is
your last hurrah. Leave it all on the table. What would you tell as a strategist and pollster? What would you tell Cuomo and Sliwa, who are trailing Mamdani, to do in these last final days of this election?
You can't both win, right? And this is the logic that Cuomo has been deploying this entire election is it has to be a head-to-head. Now, the last time Cuomo had a head-to-head with Zoran Mamdani, he lost it, right?
Yep.
Which makes his sell a little bit trickier. Yeah. But as again, there was this poll that recently came out, conducted by a firm called Victory Polling, which I can't claim to be familiar with, but seems to be as credible as any poll out there these days. That has Mamdani beating Cuomo in a head-to-head by 10, but only beating Sliwa by 8. So now there's an argument to be made, hey, if someone needs to drop out to win this, why not? Why shouldn't it be Cuomo? He's behind. He's not even a major party candidate. So of course, neither of them. Cuomo's not dropping out. Sliwa has made it abundantly clear he's not dropping out. Short of that, it's pretty hard to see what gets this done for either of them.
Now, early voting starts tomorrow. Sometimes that means we get to count those votes, but I think in this case, those votes aren't counted until election day. So we won't be able to tell anything in terms of turnout from early voting. Is that right?
We will know where the votes are coming from. The ballots themselves will
Okay.
not be unsealed, so we'll know how many from where, and we'll know a little bit about the makeup of the electorate.
Yeah.
Last in the spring, there were early signs in the early vote that, hey, this looks pretty heavy on Brooklyn. This looks pretty heavy on young voters. This looks pretty heavy on maybe progressives. You can sort of imply that. So if we see that again,
Sure. And I guess we will be able to tell if a lot of early Republicans come out, right? Because will we be able to tell the registration?
yes, I believe we'll be able to tell the registration. Yeah, we will be able to tell the registration.
Okay, well then, listen, there might be a story to tell on Monday after early voting begins. Evan, I've got more questions for you, so don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after the break. We're back with Battleground NYC one more time with Evan Roth Smith, founding partner of Slingshot Strategies and lead pollster at Blueprint. So, Evan, let's talk about that endorsement that finally came from Hakeem Jeffries. I was saying to Morgan earlier, I just don't know that this matters at this point, and splitting the baby usually makes nobody happy. What's your take?
It was quite half-hearted. Sometimes in politics, we refer to that as a paper endorsement. Where, it's just on a piece of paper. But this was even a little weak for a paper endorsement. I mean, part of the endorsement was, well, he won a free and fair election, like this was in Venezuela or something.
I thought I read the same thing, Evan, and I was like, yeah, he didn't steal it. So
yeah. What was there a doubt that the New York City Democratic primary was free and fair? There's pulling your punch, and then there's I'm not sure what words really describe that. Hakeem Jeffries had to square a circle and did his best job.
But why bother? Because as we've said 1,000 times on this show, Republicans are going to tie Mamdani to Democrat. They would do that if he lost. It wouldn't matter, right? Because they're going to do it anyway. People living in Texas are going to start getting mailers with Mamdani's face on it. Like, that's just going to happen no matter what.
It's already happened.
So what was the point?
Yeah, it's already happened. I know there's at least one swing district candidate in Virginia in their state legislative elections who's gotten a Mamdani mail about himself.
Right. Right. So I don't know what this actually accomplished, and waiting and delaying and then barely doing it. I don't know.
And I understand the concern among leaders in the Democratic Party, the National Democratic Party, of, oh boy, like, what does this mean for us in a midterm year? Is this going to be a liability?
Sure.
Can you point me to a big city American Democratic mayor in the last few years who has not been a liability for the National Democratic Party? I mean, Brandon Johnson is a liability for the Democratic Party. Karen Bass during the Palisades fire was a
100%.
Eric Adams,
I think you have to go back to like Rahm Emanuel. Maybe he wasn't a liability.
Maybe. I mean, maybe that's Bill de Blasio, was a
Yes.
national liability for the Democratic Party. Eric Adams became,
Yes.
he was less of a liability after became a laughingstock because
Right.
it was hard.
Because then he just wasn't important. Yeah. But looking at other races, like look at Graham Plattner in Maine or Omar Feta in Minnesota, maybe even AOC in 2028. Does a Mamdani win on election day? Does that boost those other candidates?
It proves it would be, I believe, the largest election won by a candidate this far left in in America anywhere recently.
Yeah.
And it would just prove the case that this continues to be a growing movement, that voters are potentially more and more amenable to it. I remember 8 years ago when AOC first won, there was a very narrow part of New York City where a candidate like this could even be viable. And even within New York, that has now grown. And of course, beyond just the core constituencies that are consistently voting for left-leaning candidates in New York, yes, a Mamdani win would indicate that some of the reservations that voters may have had that around left-leaning candidates in the Democratic Party are not so strongly held anymore. That positions, particularly on Israel, that used to be considered disqualifying for left-leaning candidates, are not so disqualifying within the Democratic Party anymore.
What if he loses? I know the polling looks like he'll definitely win, but what if he loses? Does that ding some of those candidates, the progressive candidates who are trying to kind of run a Mamdani race elsewhere?
Probably. I don't think that any of them would drop out. I mean, it's less about him losing in New York. If he lost, it would be if Zoran can't do it, then who else can? It hasn't been a flawless campaign, but he's about as good a candidate as you can ask for if you're the left flank of the Democratic Party. So maybe it would put a little rain over that parade.
Everyone thinks they know how to handle Trump. Very few have actually been successful at it. Mamdani is talking tough now. But real quick before I let you go, can he really handle Trump, do you think, or will that backfire?
I don't pretend to have any special knowledge on how to handle Donald Trump. If I did, I'd add a 0 to my retainers, right? But the truth is, I mean, the test for Zoran Mamdani isn't on election night; it's how he does as mayor. And listen, he has upturned the apple cart in a big way in Democratic politics in New York. I think he is entitled to a shot at figuring out how to stand up to Donald Trump.
We'll see if he can. Evan Roth Smith, thanks so much for coming on again. We appreciate you. And thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week, Monday through Friday. Just one more week and 2 days to go. Thanks for tuning in to Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. I'm SC Cup. We'll see you Monday.
Thanks for watching Battleground. We're now joining Live Now's nonstop stream of live and breaking news.
Their law enforcement partners